comfortable. Get Facebook and YouTube in here, or Facebook in here, not YouTube. YouTube's already in. Save the changes. Hope everyone's having a wonderful night. Gotta let it breathe while I get those in. Gotta wait for a couple green check marks. And there we go. Welcome into another episode of the Dev Valley Deep Divers. I am your host, Erick Trickel, and joining me as always is Lance Sanderson. Lance, it's been a busy week in news around the NFL, which I don't know about you, but it's great that we're back to a busy news week after about 2.5 months of rather slow days. Obviously, the biggest news when it comes to the Broncos is Jahdae Barron and RJ Harvey have signed their rookie contracts, which took some time, but with the second round picks like RJ Harvey, there was that holdup, and now we're starting to see them all just, domino effect. I talked about this a lot on, Monday morning in Broncos for Breakfast with Nick Kendall, that once one domino fell, we were going to see the rest fall, and that's what it's been.
Yep. Yeah, it's one of those things where we always talk about it, deadlines spur action. Obviously, the franchise tag was coming up just the other day on July 15th, and Trey Smith with the Kansas City Chiefs got a new deal done. TJ Watt just got a deal done with the Pittsburgh Steelers to make him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history for the second time, by the way. But then obviously rookie reporting to training camp. You got the second round picks. There was 30 out of 32 second round picks that still remain to be unsigned outside of Carson Schlesinger and Jaden Higgins with the Browns and the Texans respectively. But as soon as those dominoes started to fall, Alfred Collins was the first one with the San Francisco 49ers, kind of set that market a little bit. These second round rookie contracts, like these guys they're trying to get guaranteed money on their deals. And RJ Harvey just set a new record for a second round pick. The number 60 overall pick, I believe, is what he was. Last year's 60 overall pick didn't have any guaranteed money going into the third year. RJ Harvey got 47.7% of his contract guaranteed in the third year with the signing bonus and everything. So congratulations to him. Congratulations to these guys getting paid and getting guaranteed contracts going through their rookie careers. And obviously, I talked about it a while ago. I had no concerns over any of this getting done. It was all contract language that needed to be done. The figures were already set in stone with the rookie wage scale. It really wasn't that big a deal. It was only a matter of time. Well, the clock struck zero, and it was time to get it done.
Yeah, and one thing, doesn't deal with the Broncos at all, but it deals with TJ Watt, since you mentioned him. This contract that he signed is almost as much as what his brother JJ Watt made in his career. It's like $7 million. It's like $7 million short of it, which just goes to show you how much how much contracts have changed, especially for the defensive side of the ball in the last about 10-ish years. But going back to the Broncos and the second round picks, the big debate has always been about that guaranteed money in year two. There's been, some fluctuation of it over the last few years from 2023 to 2024, actually. The 60th overall pick actually had a drop in the percent amount guaranteed on their whole contract. It was only 0.03%, but it's still a drop off. And for RJ Harvey to sign that deal and get 47.7 of it guaranteed in just year three, first and second year fully guaranteed, that's 47.7% more in year three guaranteed than any other 60th overall pick had. It is a significant jump. For that, almost 50% guaranteed for, almost the final pick of the second round is absolutely insane to think about. And I'm willing to bet that here in 2-3 years, we're looking at second round picks at 60 through, 64 being fully guaranteed. That's just the trend that we're headed at.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to start seeing some more of these third round picks getting some guaranteed money attached to the front end of their deals as well.
Oh yeah, that's the next domino to fall.
Yeah, absolutely. So Travion Henderson, who was drafted, I believe, 36th by the New England Patriots, he just signed a fully guaranteed deal from last I saw. So Alfred Collins, I believe, was 43rd to the San Francisco 49ers, and he got, I think, 80% or something like that. It was right around that number. So to see these numbers start to escalate and get further into the rookie draft picks, and it's really good to see. I mean, I'm happy to see these guys go out and get the money that they've earned. They've obviously earned it to be an NFL player. You've at least done something that 99.8% of the world has never done. So you deserve that, everything that you can get. And I'm proud of these guys for holding out. I'm proud of these guys for sticking to their guns and finally getting something done and getting this guaranteed money flowing for everybody.
Yeah, and we're going to keep going on the Broncos here. We're going to say hello to everybody here in the chat in just a second. I see the super chats in there. Don't worry, we'll get to you. But first, we do have a word from our presenting sponsor tonight, Factor, which, hey, summer is here, which means more sun, more light, more time to do all the things that make summer so special. And the number one thing you don't want to do all summer long is spending hours cooking inside. And that's where Factor comes in. Factor chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals are ready in just 2 minutes, taking the hassle out of eating as well.
Yeah, guys, get outside instead of prepping and cooking indoors. Go work on your yards, get your garden going. These Factor meals arrive fresh and ready to eat. They're perfect for any of your guys' active lifestyles. You want to go camping, again, go out, do your yard work, the whole 9 yards, guys. With 45 weekly menu options, you can pick gourmet meals that fit your goals. You can choose from Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto, gluten-free, and many, many more.
Yeah, guys, Factor absolutely powers your day with satisfying breakfasts, on-the-go lunches, and premier dinners, and guilt-free snacks and desserts. It's easy to savor more this summer. Factor meals pack in the flavor with none of the fuss. Get started at factormeals.com/milehigh50 off and use code milehigh50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code milehigh50 off at factormeals.com/milehigh50 off for 50% off plus free shipping. And thank you, Factor, for that sponsorship. We appreciate it. Now, before we get into the topic here, got to say hello to everybody in the chat, including David Papa Bear McGilrath with the $5 super chat saying, good evening, Broncos country, #13 and 4. We have Ernie Mays coming in saying, go Broncos country only. Bo Nix, 13 and 4 and beyond. Mike S. saying, what's up, Eric and Lance. We have Michael Ronquillo coming in saying, good evening, Eric and Lance on Dove Valley Divers. Go Bo Broncos. Roy saying, hey there, Lance and Eric. David Cromwell coming in with the $5 super chat asking, is it reasonable to expect a Broncos veteran contract extension or two before week 1? And Lance, I think it is. I think we get at least one done. Who it is, I'm not sure. From how things are going, there's some indication that they want it. They're trying to prioritize Nick Benito. Some other people that I've talked with seem to indicate that they're trying to prioritize Zach Allen. I would expect it to be one of those two, but I think we get at least one, maybe both of them. Maybe they're just kind of working on both of them at the same time and they get them both done relatively close to each other.
Yeah, I heard an interesting discussion on the radio the other day talking about Courtland Sutton and why hasn't this deal been done already? We talked about it the other day. I thought that you could probably hold off on that. He's already a happy camper. He already wants to be here. They've already done a little bit right by him. You can wait on that for a little bit and prioritize Zach Allen and Nick Benito. We talked about this, I believe it was last week or maybe the week before. Honestly, I think that Courtland Sutton might be the first one to get done just because it is going to be relatively easy. He kind of slots in right about where he's at, $24-25 million. Sure, it's about what he's worth, $22, $23, $24 million. Give him a 2 or 3 year extension, get a void year on the back end of it, lower that cap number this year, and there you go. I think Zach Allen and Courtland Sutton are probably the first two that we see get done, and it wouldn't surprise me to see both of them done before training camp is over, to tell you the truth.
We have Chase Wallner coming in saying DVDD with that Happy Gilmore face. I bet you're looking forward to July 24th, Chase, which is when Happy Gilmore 2 comes out. I unfortunately won't be watching it that night. That is when I'm expected to get one of my favorite board games. I talked about this on Wednesday morning. It's getting released early, so I'm going to be getting it on Wednesday, and I'm super excited. So I'm going to be spending my night playing that and with the wife and maybe my parents. Maybe I'll have them over for it. But anyways, we have James E coming in with a $10 super chat. Thank you, James. We appreciate that. We appreciate you all who are super chatting in stars. And of course, anybody who comes in and, just chats with us. We appreciate y'all. Says, go Broncos. Let's keep the joy of winning coming. I am stoked. We have a full quiver of weapons on offense and defense to choose from. And yeah, it's one of those things where it's nice to be in the position we're in. And I actually just wrote up an article because there are some positions where the Broncos are pretty strong at to where they could even look at flipping some of those players to free up, cap space, to free up a spot for maybe another player who is starting to show some stuff that they want to keep and don't want to risk on the getting claimed on waivers for the practice squad. So it's nice to be in that position again, because last few years with players like that, it's always been, well, do the Broncos really want to keep them around because of the state they're in? It's nice to have that surplus where we're talking about trading for them because we just don't necessarily have the room for them.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, we're going to get into this here in just a little bit. By the way, like it's a great question, a great topic of getting into it. I want to go back to James here really fast. It's the first time I've seen your name here on Dove Valley Deep Divers. So if I've missed you before, I apologize. But thank you for the super chat. We appreciate you, and thank you for joining us tonight. Hopefully, you enjoy the show.
Yeah, we have Todd Ossendorf's coming in saying, for me, tight end remains the most questionable position on offense, if not the team. I'm not too far behind you there. I think I'm a little bit more concerned about linebacker, but tight end is definitely the most concerning one for me on offense. Mike S saying he agrees, but he's not sold on that. He's not sold on Ingram. Paul saying both will be signed. You wait, it costs more. Look at PS2. Yeah, and we're kind of seeing that with Nick Benito, but I think it's more so for the stars at the position. I'm not thinking that with what TJ Watt got, it's necessarily raising the cost for Nick Benito a whole lot. I do think Zach Allen is in for a bigger payday because he's definitely a top 5 interior defensive lineman. And Milton Williams got $28 million. Well, that should now be what Zach Allen's asking for. I do think it had an impact there with that. And PS2 is the 5th highest paid year later. Yeah. Star corners are always going to get paid. They're always going to undo it. He was the highest paid corner for like a few days because Jalen Ramsey ended up taking that over.
So just a quick question on this. Do you think the Broncos should address the Pat Surtain deal before it even gets started again? I'm right there with you. That's such a
you wait until they get disgruntled and then you do it.
Yep.
Because if you redo it now, that's just more money in it. And then in 2 years, when other young corners get it, you're just going to be looking at it again. Yeah. You just wait. There is such thing as being too early on deals, and we know that from the Russell Wilson extension.
Yep.
With 2 years left on his deal. So, and then Rodney Garcia coming in. Good evening, Lance, Eric, and Broncos country. Happy Friday, everyone. Yes, hope everyone is having a wonderful Friday night. Glad you guys are joining us and spending part of your Friday night with us here, especially in the summer where I believe it's nice for most of the country. Here, it's a little weird. It's kind of cloudy, but decent. And fishing's going on, so outside smells terrible. And it is kind of funny scrolling through like YouTube shorts and stuff like that. I keep seeing people that are not normally here that are here, and it's like I know exactly where that person's at, and just because I can recognize everything. And of course, also, I don't know if anybody saw this in the news, we had a wonderful tsunami warning the other day, which was great. And it's always funny because major weather events or natural disaster events like tsunami warnings or earthquakes that happen in Alaska, I swear people outside of Alaska freak out more than Alaskans do.
Well, everyone forgets how big Alaska is. Like the earthquake that happened up there is like a gigantic distance away. I think you shared us something in the group chat, and it was like the earthquake essentially happened in New Mexico, and where you live is like on the other side of Kansas. Like it's completely almost on the other side of the damn country. Like it's a long freaking ways
it's
away.
Pretty far. It was pretty far.
Yeah, but like I was like, oh, the tsunami warning. Eric, you guys good? I know where you live. Like it's not a good thing. Like, you guys gonna be getting? You're like, dude, this is nothing. It has absolutely nothing to do with me. It's fine.
Yeah,
don't worry about it.
Earthquakes are a little bit more because they can literally cause the roof to collapse or the building to collapse under your feet, and then living across the inlet from an active volcano, multiple active volcanoes, also a little bit of concern, but it's Alaska. We're prepared to it. We know we're all taught pretty early on in school, like warning signs and, emergency disasters and everything to keep an eye out for, an ear out for when we actually, do need to evacuate and everything. So it's all good. And Phil McLaughlin coming in asking, good evening, Lance and Eric. Did I feel the earthquake? What game is coming out? I did not feel the earthquake. I was actually on the phone with Chad because he's been teaching me some stuff behind the scenes. And when I got the tsunami warning, so I didn't hear it because I was on the phone. And then I'm hanging up the phone with Chad. I see the tsunami warning. Then my wife's calling me. Then as I'm getting off the phone with my wife, my mother-in-law is calling me about it. So didn't feel the earthquake, but the tsunami warning definitely created some panic and everything, but we're all good here. Didn't feel it or anything like that. And as for the game, it is one of my favorite series of games. It's called Horrified. It's a cooperative game for up to 5 players. There are different variations of it. And real quick, before we get into the conversation into the Broncos here, There's like Greek mythological monsters. There is American monsters like Mothman and the Yeti and all that. And then there's the traditional monsters, like one for traditional monsters like Dracula and Frankenstein. And the one that's coming out that I'm super excited for is a Dungeons and Dragons one.
Nice.
That has some really cool new mechanics in it for the game that I'm really excited to try, as well as some of the monsters that they have for it, because some of them are the pretty well-known monsters of Dungeons and Dragons and others are not. So I'm super excited for it. I'm a big old nerd, own over 300 board games and play Dungeons and Dragons on top of, all the football stuff. So I'm an enigma of a person. But speaking of football, we are going to get into the biggest questions for the Denver Broncos at each position. So quarterback, running back, what is the one biggest question that we want answered either throughout training camp or preseason action, whichever the case? And of course, we're going to start with quarterback here. And the quarterback one should be pretty obvious. If you're listening here, if you listen to the Broncos for Breakfast with Nick and I, it's a topic that we've touched on, that we've talked about. It's something that that Lance and I have talked about. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty simple. Everything falls on Bo Nix, right? So what the question is, what steps does Bo Nix take with his development ahead of year 2? What do we get out of him this year? That is the biggest question at the position. Yeah. It doesn't deal with Jarrett Stidham. It doesn't deal with Samuel Ellinger. It's all about Bo Nix, because this team will only go as far as he can take them.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, all these questions are going to come like with the injury question remaining the same. Just look at the roster right now. We're not going to take injuries into consideration here. That's always something you got to talk about. We're not going to do that here. But with Bo Nix specifically, you talked about what steps did he take? What steps did he take over the offseason? What step is he going to take as a quarterback this year? I'm going to elaborate a little bit on that and open up some more questions. One, what does he look like within the pocket? Because inside the pocket last year, especially under pressure, he was one of the worst quarterbacks in terms of EPA per play and EPA per pass attempt when he was under pressure last season. 2, how does he look throwing the ball over the middle of the field in the intermediate area between 10 and 19 yards between the numbers? That area where he didn't really attack that very often. That is a big question to me. What does that look like? And then 3, how is Sean Payton going to kind of continue to evolve his play calling around Bo Nix's skill sets? Because he did lead the NFL last season in yards passing outside of the pocket on those design rollout plays, on the bootleg plays, on the play action and stuff like that, where they did some swinging gate protections and got Bo Nix out into the flat. Bo Nix does a really good job with that. I want to see specifically, how does he look within the pocket? How does he look under pressure? And how does he look targeting the middle of the field this year?
Yeah, with the whole rollout aspect with Bo Nix, part of me wonders how much of that was due to his issues operating a true drop back game and attacking the intermediate of the field, and using that to, kind of cover up the issues there a little bit, getting him out of the pocket, cutting the field in half, making things easier for him. So I do wonder that. So I would like to see actually less of those, even though he did well with that, because if we're seeing less than that, because I do believe that is why. That means we're seeing development in a true passing, pocket passing game, which you really have to have in the modern NFL. But yeah, it's just those aspects of it. Can he improve on the intermediate throws? There are a lot of issues where his timing was off, the placement was off on those intermediate throws, which led to Sean Payton all but cutting those out of the route tree for him. Do they find that consistent deep threat? Do they find somebody to be that consistent yards after the catch player? It's not about just about Bo Nix, but it's about the weapons around him. Can they find those other pieces to open up the door more for him to take those other steps for it? So there is a lot there with Bo Nix, and obviously it all rides on him. He's got to stay healthy. As you said, injuries are always a asterisk with all of these. Whenever we're talking about a player, can't predict injuries, nor do we want to. So Bo Nix taking that step year 2, what steps he takes, that is obviously the question there for the quarterback position. Now moving on to running backs. Running backs is another one that you and I, we've touched on it. Nick and I, we've touched on it on the Broncos for Breakfast. What's the rotation look like at the position? We kind of have our expectations for the number 1 for 1A and 1B. I think that's the best way to label them. But who's that third back? Who's that fourth back? And there's a competition for that fourth back. So it's relatively unknown. And then as part of that is what is their usage? What's their role in that? So I don't know for you. I have my idea on how it's going to be. I've talked about it on Broncos for Breakfast a couple times of how the 4-man build of the 53 man roster is going to look, Lance. But what are your thoughts about this, the running back position and the makeup of it?
Well, obviously, you bring in J.K. Dobbins as a veteran, experienced back. He's going to probably be the lead back to start the season. And obviously, R.J. Harvey at the 60th overall pick with the guaranteed money that he just got. You're going to keep those two guys around for sure. Jaleel McLaughlin is probably going to figure in as that slasher back, as a change of pace kind of a guy that can go and hopefully create some more explosive plays for you as a runner, more so than as a receiver, because he's just not developed as a receiver in that aspect. And then you get that power back, a guy that can go put his head down, run, and churn out 3 or 4 yards if you absolutely need him to, in Audric Estime. I think that those are the 4 guys that actually make the roster. But I am curious at the tail end of this thing and how the practice squad kind of lines out here, because Tyler Bidet, they showed a lot of faith in him early in the season. He got those big time carries against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Then he got hurt against the New York Jets, was out for the remainder of the season. But at the end of the season, they go into the Buffalo Bills game in the playoffs, and Tyler Bidet is the running back that they activate over
and never saw the field.
Exactly. Like, so how does he factor into this entire thing? Audric Estime, was inactive. Obviously, he didn't see the field. Jaleel McLaughlin didn't see the field very much either. Like that. How does this rotation look, and how these guys fit into everything? The big thing to me, I think the 4 guys, we already know who they are. How many carries do they get in preseason? What does it look like? How situational are these guys going to be? Is it going to be just J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey for the most part, with the occasional spell carries from Jaleel McLaughlin? And are we going to see Audric Estime as a power goal line back? Like those are the questions you got to ask yourself here.
Yeah, I will say that if J.K. Dobbins is the top running back and when we start the season, then that is a major disappointment.
I don't.
J.K. Dobbins isn't as good as a lot of people make him out to be. He was like the 3rd most inefficient running back in the NFL last year. Got a lot of carries, didn't do a lot with it. He's not explosive. He's not exciting as a runner. He's a solid pass protector. Doesn't offer much in the receiving game. So a lot of people are talking about him replacing Javonte Williams in the receiving aspect. Well, that's not really his game. It's got to be R.J. Harvey. You can't sit there and, you can't take him with the 60th overall pick and be looking for explosive elements to your running game and then not have him start.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I would expect like maybe a 60-40 or 55-35, however way you want to put it, carry percentage between the two, but it should be Harvey getting the most of it, because you need Harvey for this run game far more than you need J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins helps raise the floor, and when you're a floor raiser, you're better as a depth guy than the starter. And then behind that, I think Jaleel McLaughlin is that 3rd back, and then Audric Estime, they really like him. They like what he does, and he is that short yardage power back. And J.K. Dobbins can do that to an extent, but it's not great. I think that Tyler Bidet is making his way to the practice squad with Blake Watson being moved on from. That's just kind of how the pecking order is for me for it.
I want to grab this comment really fast from Todd Osendorf saying, I see no point in having Estime, honestly. Dobbins can do everything he does better than he can. The problem with this, and not to call you out here, Todd, but Estime is obviously younger. Like, J.K. Dobbins is only 26 years old. He's been in the league for 4 or 5 years now. He had a major knee injury a couple of seasons ago.
He had an ACL and the Achilles.
And the Achilles, yeah. So he's got the injury concerns there. Estime may not have the burst and explosiveness, and that is something that was said lower in the chat here. But the whole reason why you keep Audric Estime is because he does have that ability to be a power back for you. Dobbins can do that, sure. Like he runs with good power, but at the same time, you want to have a young developmental guy that can be a thunder to the lightning that is RJ Harvey moving forward. Like, it's not just a this year conversation. But think about this in team building going throughout the next 2 seasons. Like, is Estime a lock to remain on the roster, not this season, but next year? No, they can go out and draft another guy, maybe find another veteran running back in free agency, or maybe, like I said a couple weeks ago, if J.K. Dobbins runs for 1,200 yards this year, 1, that's an indictment on R.J. Harvey, but 2, you might think about bringing him back because he is only 26 years old. You can milk another year out of that on a cheap veteran deal. So Estime has a lot of questions to answer here, but you want to keep him around because that developmental year for a 5th-round pick, a guy that you very clearly like, you want him to be around. That's the developmental side of things you got to think about.
And Todd says Esme is cheap, but we also need our fullback. Michael Burton's going to make the practice squad like he did last year, and then it'll be a practice squad call it for the first few games, and then they'll figure out something. Probably when injuries happen, they'll figure out a way to get him on the roster. I'm not expecting Michael Burton to make the 53-man roster off the bat just because of what they did last year, and something they looked at doing the year before, but injuries changed things, and so Michael Burton initially made the 53-man roster, and then they talked about it after that and saying, well, we were looking at getting him on the practice squad, but an injury changed things about it. So they seem to want Michael Burton on the practice squad for the first few weeks.
Yeah.
And let's be honest here. Michael Burton is a solid special teamer. I think he's very overrated. There, not bad, solid, but not some fantastic guy you have to have. And he still offers almost nothing on offense.
Right.
His blocking is inconsistent at best. And it's not that Audric Esme, can fill that role, but it's a role that you can fill with a tight end. Even with the concerns with the room, Nate Atkins has actually done well in that role over last season, especially to end it. So you have more options with Michael Burton to where you don't need that 5th guy as a fullback on there. You can keep Michael Burton around on the practice squad because, hey, he's not going to agree to sign elsewhere because there's going to be that under the table handshake agreement between Peyton and the Broncos of like they just had last year.
Yeah.
But with Estime making it is when you look at the running back room, you typically want, there's typically about 4 types that you want around. You want your explosive back. That's RJ Harvey. You want your slasher back. That's Sheila McLaughlin. J.K. Dobbins is more of a versatile guy. And he is a guy who can do just a little bit of everything, jack of all trades, master of none type. And then you have Audric Esme, who is your short yardage specialist. And he did quite well there last year.
Yep.
And then Todd floats the idea of moving Esme to a fullback, halfback hybrid, maybe. No. Esme actually dropped weight. He's about 300. He's about 220 pounds this year instead of 230 who it was last year. He slimmed up. Hopefully is making him a little bit more bursty because burst was one of those issues that he had last year.
Yep.
But his age, still only 20. I think he's 21 years old, soon to be 22 in September, and still cheap. Those are things that you keep around for it. They still have a lot of hope in them. Now moving on to the position, to wide receiver here. This is another one that's pretty obvious. It's one that we've talked about at length. I don't think we need to go into a whole lot, but who ends up as wide receiver 2? There's a case that you can make for any of these wide receivers. So that is the question for wide receiver. Who ends up as a second guy?
I quite honestly think it's going to be Devon Vele, just because he's that not necessarily a veteran, but he's at least had a year in the system. And he showed really well in that role last season outside of when he had the broken ribs and didn't play for a while there. But he showed consistency and reliability. To me, I think the bigger question here, is it the 3rd-round pick, Pat Bryant out of Illinois? Is that the guy that's going to end up being wide receiver 2 here? You spend that much draft capital on a guy, and he is a very similar player to Devon Vele with I think a better blocking skill set behind him as well. He's more consistent in contested catch situations as well. He showed well in rookie minicamp, showed well in minicamp as well. So to me, I think it's between those two that's going to be the more reliable guy opposite to Cortland Sutton. But that also then ties into the question, how does Marvin Mims play? Like what is his role specifically? Is he going to be more as a slot receiver? Is he going to be that kind of gadget role? Can he take that step? This is going to be a weird comparison, but hear me out for a second. Think of Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, when he was a young player, they used him a lot as a gadget player, a guy out of the backfield, orbit motion, jet sweeps, and stuff like that. That's what the Broncos are kind of using Marvin Mims. Tyreek Hill developed and became one of the better route runners at the NFL, and also has that explosive speed. Mims isn't quite as explosive as Tyreek Hill is, but can he take that next step forward as a route runner? That's the biggest question there. So is it Vele? Is it Mims? Is it Pat Bryant? Those are the 3 guys I think are the premier players that can get that wide receiver 2 role and be a bigger part of this offense moving forward.
Yeah, I'm not betting on Marvin Mims. I'm not betting on him being more than the gadget receiver that he is. That's about it. Like with Marvin Mims, he's kind of hit that point where he is what he is. Sure, there's rooms that he can be improvement or room for him to improve, but he's not going to make the improvement to be your number 2 receiver.
Right.
Not at this point. And then as for Devon Bailey, expectation is for him to win it, but he's hurt.
Yep.
And it's a lot of mystery around his injury. And when asked about it, Sean Payton got a little testy.
Yep. I forgot about that.
My answer here for what's going to happen is there really isn't going to be a wide receiver 2. It's going to be wide receiver 2 by committee. It's going to depend on situation. It's going to be depend on opponents. They're going to move guys around to get the best matchup. At times, it may be Marvin Mims. At times, it may be Troy Franklin. At times, it'll be Pat Bryant. At times, it'll be Evan Ingram. At times, it'll be Devon Bailey. It's not a single guy. That's how I think that it's going to play out. And going off of Sean Payton's history with the wide receiver position, that seems to be the safe bet. That it's not going to be one guy to do it. That we're probably going to get 3 or 4 guys around that 50, 60 catch mark. With Cortland Sutton leading the way with 90 to 100, 110.
Right. And you brought up Evan Ingram, and I think that's a very salient point here because Evan Ingram isn't your true inline Y tight end. He's a guy that you want to flex out as an F, put him in the slot. You can split him out wide if you want to. He has that receiving ability and the explosive playmaking after the catch. Like he's a guy that can actually do something for you as a receiver. You don't want to have him lined up as a front side blocker on outside zone. It's just not what he's actually going to be able to do. So to me, I think that Evan Ingram being in that discussion is a very good point to bring up.
And also it's wide receiver 2 isn't necessarily the other boundary receiver.
Yep.
And that's where Evan Ingram comes in. He's going to be that number 2 guy out of the slot.
Yep.
Where did Devon Bailey play more last year? On the boundary or in the slot? In the slot.
Power slot.
He was that power slot for them. So that also adds to that of using these guys around. Shiloh coming in, saying late to the start, but happy to be here. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to you, Shiloh. Glad you can join us with that picture of that beautiful German Shepherd. Absolutely love German Shepherds. Ernie May says, thank you for talking Broncos football only. Hey, I can get back to talking about earthquakes and board games, Ernie. No. Just teasing. Glad you can join us as well. Glad everybody can join us and be part of the conversation here. Now, moving on to tight ends. And this is one that, hey, if you know me, you know that I am not a fan of this tight end room. Evan Ingram missed 8 games last year, 4 with a lower body injury, 4 with the torn pec. But the question is, does anybody step up behind Evan Ingram, or do the Broncos look to add someone either from elsewhere, either via free agency or a trade? Because when I look at this room, it makes me want them to, I really want them to look at adding somebody else. Adam Trotman is at best a 3rd tight end. Nate Atkins is at best a 3rd tight end. And one of those 2 is going to be your number 2 guy.
Yep.
You would love to upgrade over one of those 2 guys and then keep the other one as a 4th tight end. You can really raise the floor and raise the ceiling of this room because let's face it, expectations for Lucas Kroll should be practice squad, and expectations for Caleb Lohner this year should be practice squad.
Yeah. My biggest question here is, what is Caleb Lohner and why is everyone so excited about him? Like, don't get me wrong.
Because he beat up on air in OTAs and minicamp in quarterback passes to tight ends.
Right. That's and I get it. And there was a report going around about when Sean Payton called Caleb Lohner saying, have you ever heard of Jimmy Graham? We're going to make you the next Jimmy Graham. Yeah, well, okay. You got a former basketball player with size, good athleticism, good leaping ability. Maybe he can be a red zone threat for you, but he's got to learn the nuances of playing the game at the NFL level. But forget the NFL level, just the basic
in general.
Level of playing
he played
football.
57 snaps of college football.
Exactly. Like he's got a long, long ways to go. Now, back to the actual point of this conversation. You said behind Evan Ingram, you've got Adam Troutman, you've got Lucas Kroll, you've got Nate Atkins. I think Atkins lines up for you if you want to keep him around as that H back. You got kind of the fullback hybrid tight end kind of look there for him. That's fine. But you also said, can the Broncos go out and find somebody? Well, I was looking at free agency before we started here. I mean, unrestricted free agents, you've got Michael Pruitt from the Steelers, who's 33 years old. Nick Van Nett, formerly with the Titans, unrestricted free agent at 32. CJ Uzomah.
Former Bronco Nick Van Nett.
Yeah, former Bronco Nick Van Nett. That's right. I forgot he was a former Bronco. CJ Uzomah, who was formerly with the Eagles and with the Bengals there for a long time. I think he was with the Jets too as well, 32 years old. Jeff Swaim, Hayden Hurst, Tyler Davis, all these guys are right at 32, or 30 years old. If you want to go to like the street free agents, the biggest name available is Tommy Sweeney. And that's not a good thing because he hasn't played in, you said, what, 3 years?
Like 2 or 3 years Tommy Sweeney's played in.
Yeah, he's also 30 years old. So the veteran free agent market, there's a couple of guys. I would be interested in CJ Uzama. That would be a name that I would be okay with. He could line up in line and be a decent blocker, not a great blocker. He offers a little bit of pass catching ability as well. So if you want to raise the floor with a guy like that, sure. But I think that the next part of this conversation goes to if you're going to trade somebody that's on the defensive side of the football, we can go into that. Maybe one of these edge players. Like Dondre Tillman is a player you can maybe move on from. Trade for him to find a guy like
you're getting ahead of things. You're getting ahead of things.
I know. I'm teasing the conversation, but that's where this conversation comes down to. If you're going to add somebody, you're going to do it via trade. It's probably going to be somebody in that edge room
or draft picks.
Yeah, that's true. You can do that.
It's Sean Payton.
It is.
We know how much he loves to trade draft picks.
Yeah. Especially with
the tight end room. I mean, last week or the week before, you brought up trading for Darnell Washington. I don't see the Steelers doing that. They got Johnny Smith as their receiving tight end, Pat Freiermuth as their versatile guy, and then Darnell Washington as their blocker. So I don't see that happening. I'm not sure who else would be available or anything like that. It's not like there's a lot of tight ends out there in the NFL in the first place. And a lot of the guys that you named that are free agents right now, they're number 3 quality guys at best. So it's hard to upgrade this room.
Yep.
And Todd comes in saying that it was a mistake to not address tight end earlier, which I can agree with, but it also depends on where they value the people, where they value the prospects versus where they fell. It was a not so unknown fact that they had a lot of interest in Mason Taylor. They just didn't think he would go as high as he did. Mm-hmm. They thought he would fall a little bit to where they could potentially move up and get him. And there were a couple of tight ends that they had interest in as well. And it all fell short. And so they end up taking Caleb Lohner, which, hey, it's great that Sean Payton's hyping up as Jimmy Graham, but hey, remember Paxton Lynch was going to be John Elway? I do.
Yep.
What coaches and general managers say about players, what fans and analysts say about players and what they're going to be, it means nothing. It all comes down to what they're going to do on the field. And I'm not betting money on a guy with 57 snaps to be a major impact this year. The only way I could see it is as a red zone specialist only, just because of he's tall and he can jump. So he's a guy that you can just, hey, go run to the back of the end zone. And so Bo Nix could potentially jump it up or throw you a jump ball.
Yep. Big body with blockout versatility. Yep. He's got a guy that has former basketball skills. Like that's what he does. So sure, I can maybe.
See Chang saying next month is preseason, get to watch some football. For the Broncos it is, but here in 13 days, we get football back, even though it's not the Broncos. So I'm excited for that. We can add a camp cut at tight end and still improve. Yeah. And going back to Michael Burton, and you kind of touched on it. The Atkins can replace that if they really wanted to move on from it. So again, I'm not pressured to to find a spot for Michael Burton on the roster, even if he does end up going elsewhere, which I don't think he would.
And the other thing, just quickly on Michael Burton, is if he's on the roster week 1, his salary fully guarantees at that particular point. So you want to
veteran contracts,
fully guarantee if you're on the roster in week 1. So you want to release him, waive him, put him on the practice squad, and guess what? There you go.
Ronnie Garcia asking if Dawson Knox is a free agent. Nope, he's still with the Buffalo Bills. Now moving on to offensive tackle. I did split offensive tackle and interior offensive line. Not much of a conversation at offensive tackle. We know Garrett Bowles. We know Mike McGlinchey, Matt Pierre, and Alex Palczewski. They're the top 4 guys. Alex Palczewski being that tackle guard on that right side, having that versatility there. But the question here is, do one of these guys, or Frank Crum even, do one of these guys force the Broncos to keep a 5th offensive tackle like apparently Frank Crum did last year despite being abysmal in preseason? Is it Xavier Truss? Is it Frank Crum again? Is it Marquise Cox? Does one of these guys do that?
I don't know, quite honestly. If you're going to keep a 5th tackle, you might as well keep Frank Crum back around. And like you said, he was abysmal in training camp, but that's just filling out the bottom part of your roster. Because did he go up and down? Was he an up and down player last year, or he was on the roster the entire time?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, that doesn't. It doesn't necessarily make sense to me with Palczewski. Another year removed from the injury concerns that he had. To me, just keep 4 and open up that roster versatility for maybe another wide receiver if you want to keep a guy, maybe another cornerback that maybe it's Damari Mathis, maybe it's another safety. Like we'll get into that conversation here in a minute. Like keeping 5 offensive tackles, you can waive Frank Crum. He's not going to go anywhere. Put him back on the practice squad and keep him that. If you want to call him up for as an extra game day player, then sure, do what you got to do. But why keep 5 offensive tackles on the field when you really like what you have in Alex Palczewski? He showed consistent growth over the last couple of seasons, and Matt Pert played really well in preseason, and I believe he got a start in there as well, or played some limited snaps at least for Mike McGlinchey last season. So
Frank Crum got some snaps in the regular season too. And we don't talk about that. Yeah, it was forgettable. Well, actually, no, it wasn't. It was unforgettable because of how bad it was.
Well, it was. He had like that was a Kansas City game, wasn't it?
No, let me pull it up because if I remember right, he only played like 10 snaps and he allowed like 5 pressures.
Yeah, it was awful.
It was absolutely terrible of it. But yeah, it's one of those things, and also keeping 5 offensive tackles likely means you're keeping 11 offensive linemen, and you really don't like. Keeping 10 is difficult. Keeping 11 is really rough. So it is. Oh, never mind. He played one snap last year. I thought I remember him playing more than that.
Regardless,
against Las Vegas, and he ended up.
Regardless, it doesn't really.
It was
matter.
bad.
I mean, yeah, like your point about keeping 10 offensive linemen.
Oh, he played 8. 7 of them were just as a run blocker. I clicked on run block. I clicked on pass blocking and not just overall offense, but. He was bad. Anyways, beside the point.
Sorry, my point was just that you said keeping 10 offensive linemen is hard. Keeping 11 is even harder, especially when you have depth concerns at safety and linebacker. Like that's you're taking away from key depth pieces to keep a 5th offensive tackle for what?
You're hurting special teams more than anything.
Yes, that's very good. That's a very good point.
The Broncos made it clear that they want to improve their special teams, which weren't terrible last year. So I don't know. I don't see it. But moving on here, we have Shiloh saying, I know you have mentioned before, but what are your odds Loner makes the 53-man roster? And same question for practice squad. What's the percentage rather? I would put him at 5% to make the roster, just because 5% is what I value of unknown factors. Like maybe he goes out there and really shocks the world and surprises everyone with what he does in preseason and all that, to where another team would claim him if he goes there, because there were other teams who were interested in drafting him. We know that the Colts are one of them that have been made public. There are a couple other teams as well. I can't remember who they are that have also been made public. So I would say about 5% for that, and then 90% for the practice squad, just for the same kind of reason. Maybe he shows enough in preseason that can make him a risk for another team to take him. I would doubt it though. So maybe I'd go 95%. 5% to make the roster, 95% to make the practice squad.
Yeah, agreed.
Now, speaking of Shiloh, he says, when you get to guard, I'm very excited to see how Clay Webb can hopefully earn his way on the 53-man roster. Well, we're on the interior offensive line. And the question is, who steps up as depth? Because we have a guy at center who's going to be a free agent after this year, and we have a guy at left guard who is potentially on his way out after this year. So who's
give him a contract extension? Give him an extension.
Yeah, no, he still has like 2 years left on his deal. Let's Russell Wilson in it, right, Lance? Russell Wilson with Ben Powers of all people. And I'm a fan of Ben Powers. It's not that he's bad; he's a solid guy. He's just not worth his contract. Anyways, who steps up as depth? Is it Clay Webb? Is it Calvin Throckmorton? Is it Nick Gargiulo? Is it Alex Forsyth? Does Alex Forsyth show enough to be the heir apparent at center? Does he show enough to win the starting job this year and potentially move on from Luke Wattenberg in a trade? Not saying that's going to happen. I would put that at a 0% chance of happening. It's just part of this whole conversation here. Part of that unknown aspect of things. And so, yeah, who steps up there? And does Xavier Truss look better at guard? Does Alex Palczewski look better at guard? And they keep him there, which opens a door for a tackle. And maybe they don't have to keep 5 tackles now. Now they can keep 4, with Palczewski being viewed more as a guard. How much does his versatility play into it? How much does Clay Webb's versatility? Xavier Truss's? There's so much here with it, and we don't have a lot of answers about the depth on the offensive line as a whole outside of Alex Palczewski, because when Mike McGlinchey got hurt, he came in, and we did get to see a little bit of Alex Forsyth last year when Luke Wattenberg got hurt, and he was a little bit better as a run blocker, but significantly worse as a pass protector. Mm-hmm. So what steps do they take with their development? And there's just a lot here about the depth on the interior and the offensive line as a whole, because we have next to no answers about it.
Well, and the big thing that's going to stick out in everybody's craw is obviously the one play where Alex Forsyth got bowled over against the Kansas City Chiefs on the blocked field goal that ended up losing the Broncos the game. I mean, Bo Nix did everything he could to get the Broncos into field goal position. Like 4 seconds left on the clock, kicked the field goal. Alex Forsyth got absolutely just destroyed and fell over. Everyone's going to have that play stick in his craw. I'm going to go back to the preseason, though, where he looked terrible as a pass protector, terrible as a run blocker. He's got to get a lot stronger in his lower half, specifically as a run blocker, because he was just blown off the ball too many times. Gargiulo, I don't remember a whole lot about him, so I'm not going to really speak to him. But like that's the biggest concern here. Is it Gargiulo? Is it Clay Webb? Is it Forsyth? Who's going to step up as that interior depth offensive lineman? And what about Quinn Bailey? I know that he's not on the roster right now. He's a free agent coming off that broken ankle from last season. Is he still potentially available as a swing guy, or is he gone? Is that like
Denver's
a
moved on.
dream there? Okay,
Denver's moved on.
Then never mind. It's between Forsyth, Gargiulo, and Quay Leb, and that's the bigger question here. And I agree with you. There's not a lot to talk about there because the three starters are so entrenched. And with Luke Wattenberg, this again. Pro Football Focus player grades are wonky, and they can be cattywampus and just completely off the board here. But Luke Wattenberg last season, I have it pulled up right now, number 2 in pass block grade as a center behind Creed Humphrey, who is arguably the best center in the NFL right now. 82.5 pass blocking grade per PFF last season, and was like in the top 8 or 9 in pass block win rate. Like the guy can pass protect. If you're going to continue the offensive line and keep the continuity there, Wattenberg's probably going to be entrenched as your starter. And my biggest question here is, can he develop better as a run blocker? Because that was his biggest issue last year.
Yeah, I mean, Broncos offensive line ranked first in ESPN run block win rate, but there were some issues with consistency from Ben Powers and just overall play from Luke Wattenberg that raised some concerns there. Now flipping sides of the ball, and we got to get through this quick because we only have 10 minutes here.
Oh, wow. Holy cow.
Interior defensive line, hey, that's what happens when you're having fun conversations. Interior defensive line, not much of conversation there. We know what the top 5 rotation is going to be. Nothing's going to change that. Xavier Jones is your third guy as your 4-eye 5 technique. You know Malcolm Roach, DJ Jones in the middle. Who steps up as that 6th guy? Is it Eoma Uwazurike? Do they stick with the liability of Jackson? Does Matt Henningsen come out of nowhere? Does one of these other Jordan Miller or one of these undrafted free agents? My bet is Uwazurike, just because they kept him around last year, and when he did see the field, he actually looked solid, unlike Jordan Jackson, who, while he played more, was consistently a liability.
I'm right there with you. And like you said, they kept him around after the gambling scandal and everything that happened with the year-long suspension. They allowed him to get out there on the field. He showed a little bit of growth, but now that he's actually in camp again and is able to be around this roster and able to be around the coaching, he's got the tools. I mean, he's got great lower half strength. He's got great length. He's got great burst in his lower half. Like, he also has some position versatility. You can line him up out as a 5 technique if you want to. Line him up as a pass rusher against a 0-1 technique as a nose tackle if you need him to in pass rush situations. Like, that to me is the player to really watch at the defensive line this season.
Yeah, and before we get to the next one, Rodney Garcia coming in with a quick question. Honestly, guys, who do you think has a better offensive line unit, Denver or the Eagles? The Eagles. They have the best left tackle. They have the second best right tackle. They have one of the best left guards and one of the best centers. Eagles by far. And then moving on to edge, it's another easy one because they're 5 deep there. Nick Benito, Jonathan Cooper, Jonah Ellis, Q Robinson, Dondre Tillman, and then they have Andrew Farmer and Johnny Walker behind them. So the question here is, being 5 deep can be a little bit tough with snap counts, you can't feed all those mouths, so to speak. So do they move one of them and keep a Johnny Walker or Andrew Farmer around just because they can be that injury insurance game day inactive and allow them to focus on feeding the other 4 mouths?
Yeah.
And if so, who is it? I would expect Dondre Tillman, but maybe if contract stuff with Nick Benito doesn't go the way they want early on, slim chance they do this, less than 1% chance, but until he signs an extension, there's always that possibility that they can look at Nick Bonito for that.
Well, I agree with you on this. And to me, I think that the easy piece to move on from is Dondre Tillman, because he doesn't fit. This is going to sound weird, but he doesn't fit necessarily the mold of what the Broncos have with the rest of their edge defenders. Like Dondre Tillman is more of a hand in the dirt 7 technique than a stand-up like edge rusher, speed rusher type. Do you want to keep that versatility? Do you want to keep a guy that can run a 4 down? I'm with you. I am absolutely with you on this. To me, it's Jonah Ellis. Is that the player that you maybe move on from? Or maybe, like you said, even Nick Bonito with the contract stuff. Which player is it that they potentially do move on from if they want to go and add a tight end? If they want to add another, mid-round draft pick, maybe a 3 or 4 or a 5 with another player here. Is it Jonathan Cooper with the contract? Do they have a little bit of regret because he regressed this last season after he got paid? Like, there's a lot of questions here.
Financially, it can't be Jonathan Cooper. It's not going to be Jonah Ellis, who did as well as he did as a 3rd-round pick. He's safe. So it really is. It's not Q Robinson, who's a 4th-round pick. Yep. He's pretty much safe, plus his special teams value. So it is between Tillman and Nick Bonito. And he mentioned Tillman being that versatile guy. Yeah, because you don't have other versatile guys, you still keep that versatile guy around. Not to mention he's the best run defender that they have in the group. And he was more effective as a pass rusher than Jonah Ellis was. By far. He had a higher win percentage, and his pass rush productivity was higher. He did more on less pass rush attempts, almost 100 less pass rush attempts. Had 2 more pressures, 1 less sack, and significantly better as a run defender again. So it makes it tough. I think you keep that versatility around, and I think that you find a way to make it work, because Tillman also has the strength, and he's listed at 247, but he actually plays like 265, 270.
Yeah.
He has a size to kind of be moved around a little bit as well. And then you have Q Robinson, who has that ability to play that linebacker as an A-gap mugger and blitz that way. So you have the options there. And speaking of linebacker, there's medical concerns with Dre Greenlaw, who's missed time with an injury. There's injury concerns with Alex Singleton coming back. The depth is absolutely atrocious. It's like every single one person at the linebacker position has some kind of question or concern about their game. Does anybody step up here? That's the question. You need somebody to step up. Who is it, if anybody? I'm not betting on Justin Strnad at this point in his career, who was a better starter last year than Cody Barton. But again, that's like talking about who was a shinier turd. Is it Drew Sanders? Does it finally click for him mentally? He's a coach's son, but that doesn't mean much. Just because you're a coach's son doesn't mean you're, a smart football guy. There's been few examples of that in NFL history. So who steps up, if anybody there? If I did have to bet on somebody, it would be Lavelle Bailey, but undrafted rookie or undrafted free agent last year. Didn't see the field a whole lot as a rookie. Did see it on special teams where he did well, which is his avenue to sticking around on this roster. But we got to see more on defense out of him this year.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. It's the injury concerns. I mean, whether it's Drake Greenlaw, whether it's Alex Singleton, and there's rumors going around that it's not necessarily coming around as well, with the ACL tear. So that's a big question here. Obviously, the leading tackler for this team for the last handful of his healthy seasons, and one of the better tacklers for the Philadelphia Eagles in his time there. But you're talking about an aging player on a veteran contract. It's probably going to be, I don't know how much guaranteed money he has left, if any at all, on his deal right now. So that's an easy player to move on from. But where do you add even more depth? You talked about Bailey. You talked about Drew Sanders and his inability to stick at either edge or off-ball linebacker, and some of the confusion that he has and the bad tape he has out there on film. So this linebacker room is scary. And if you look at free agency, I just pulled it up here. You got like Kaiser White, formerly with the Cardinals, at 29 years old. Eric Kendricks. This is name recognition, guys. I'm not talking like actual fits here. Camus Grugier-Hill with the Vikings, who actually can play as this is actually a decent fit. He's 31 years old. Nick Vigil, Shaquille Quarterman, Kaliki Hudson. Like there's some players out there you can go and add as like some veteran depth pieces here. But if you're already moving on from Alex Singleton with the injury concerns here, you've got injury concerns with Dre Greenlaw. Now you're going to bring in veteran depth that hasn't landed on a roster yet. That's even more scary to me.
Before we get to cornerback, which is a very simple, easy conversation and simple, easy question, Glenn Ashley saying, "Good morning, legends, Eric, Lance, and Broncos country. Happy weekend to all. This is why I wanted us to add Devin Bush as a bench player. With every weekly show, round one is closer. Hashtag LFG. Let's freaking go. Hashtag say to being. Hashtag DB4L and hashtag MHH for life." And Michael Ronquillo saying, "Great show tonight, Eric and Lance on Dev Valley Drivers." Cornerback question. Who ends up the top three? We know Patrick Stan. We know Jade Barron is going to be there somewhere. Is he the nickel? Is he the slot? Where he's most comfortable at is going to play a factor, as is who is better between Riley Moss and Jaquan McMillan. Expectation is Moss on the boundary, Barron in the slot, but there still seems to be that possibility that Moss has moved back as a depth piece, and then McMillan is that starter in the slot with Barron on the boundary. That's the biggest question. There's not much more to the position here other than that. They're 5 deep at the position if they keep McMillan. And there may not be a need to keep 6 corners, which pushes a lot of guys out, including Damari Mathis.
Yep.
So the biggest question is, how does the top 3 play out?
Yeah, it to me, like it's between Chris Abrams-Drain and Damari Mathis for cornerback 5. And I think it's Chris Abrams-Drain without question. He's got more versatility. Damari Mathis has had a steep drop off here. I think you're absolutely correct here. Is it Jaquan McMillan or Riley Moss that sees the field more often, because Jade Barron can play on the boundary, and I think he's going to start on the boundary. And then when they go to that nickel, Riley Moss is going to be the guy coming in here, with Jaquan McMillan being that depth piece and Chris Abrams-Drain being the last guy in the room that adds some special teams versatility and some athleticism and some length too, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, and to be clear, Broncos are in nickel 95% of the time.
Exactly. Yep.
It's their base defense here. Final question. It's at safety. Who ends up as the third safety, and how does the depth chart fill out? I like the depth at safety a little bit more, even though PJ Locke's not a great starter. He's a fine safety piece. I went and watched Sam Franklin with his few snaps on defense, and he actually did decently there. And then JL Skinner, he hasn't seen the field a whole lot, but I got to say, after watching back special teams last year, he was probably the best special teams player outside of, the actual specialist and the returner. Like, he did really well on special teams last year. I think there is an easy avenue for it to be Sam Franklin as the third safety, as well as a special teams player he's really good at that as well. So one of the reasons why they brought him in. JL Skinner as safety 4, and then who as safety 5? Is it Keidron Smith with his ball hawking ability that he showed last year that kept him around on the roster? Is it Delaren Turner-Yell as another special teams player? Does PJ Locke make it anyways as that third safety, keeping Franklin as that 4th and Skinner as that 5th? There's a lot of options there, but again, I think it's at least Franklin and Skinner, and then I don't know about the 5th spot, but I think they move on from Locke.
Well, I actually kind of agree with you on that, because PJ Locke had a spinal fusion surgery done in this offseason, and he went on KOA it was just a week ago, I think, and talked about the whole process. And they're very excited about the recovery that he's made, but that's a big time health concern there. Does PJ Locke even stick around on this roster with it? You got your spine fused together, dude. That's insane. That's a big thing. I agree with you here. Is it Delaren Turner-Yell or is it JL Skinner? And what do they want? Do they want a guy with Turner-Yell who can play as a deep half safety, has a little bit of range? Well. He has the ability, though. JL Skinner is more of a downhill box defender with Talanoa Hufanga. I don't know enough about Sam Franklin to really comment on this, but I think that he's, based on what I understand, he's more of a special teams player, box safety type. Do they need another guy that has range on the back end? That's the bigger question here. And with PJ Locke and that back surgery, that's where.
And that wasn't PJ Locke's strong suit, anyways.
Right? No. He they did really well working a 2 high. It was a weird hybrid looking, and Brandon Jones did a really good job. The way that they rotated those guys last season was really fun to watch. But PJ Locke worked better closer to the line of scrimmage. My thing is, he does have that range. I mean, you watched it. We watched it live against the Green Bay Packers at the Mile High Huddle meet and greet.
I wouldn't really call that range, but okay.
He ran 25 yards horizontally to go and get that ball. It was a nice play. Regardless,
it was a nice play, but there's a difference between range,
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 no.
And on that note, it's part of it is reason why they went and sought out Talanoa Hufanga is because PJ Locke didn't play very well close to the line of scrimmage, and he didn't play very well as a single high, which led to them having issues with how they were using Brandon Jones. They wanted to use him as a single high safety, and when they did, they had issues with PJ Locke playing closer, so they had to play Brandon Jones closer to the line of scrimmage, and they had issues with PJ Locke. They were best suited in too high. So PJ Locke doesn't bring that range. Delaire Turner doesn't bring that range. I think they're just best suited with Brandon Jones being that, and hope and pray that he doesn't get hurt. But anyways, guys, that's going to have to wrap it up for us. I will be back on Monday morning with Nick on Broncos for Breakfast. We will be back next week with another episode of Death Valley Deep Divers. We're still having a conversation with Chad about in the interim until things get sorted out with Saturday nights of getting us back on the show on Saturday nights, but still nothing there. Haven't had that conversation yet. But before we get out of here, there are a few things you can do. One of them is you can subscribe, like, and share. Those are 3 things you can do that only cost a matter of seconds, and they are things that help us out with the algorithms on Facebook, YouTube, on whatever it is you're listening to us on, that with those ever-changing algorithms that are ever frustrating for us. If you're listening to us after the fact on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or even listening to us now and you want a chance to win some gear, not swag, I hate saying swag, every single month, you can go to Apple or Spotify and leave a 5-star review. You can follow us on Instagram at MileHighHuddle with an underscore between Mile and High and Huddle. You can go to mhhmerch.com to get your gear on, not swag. I hate swag, but merch. You have hats like this, hats like the Broncos for Breakfast, which I need to get around to getting one. Shirts, sweatshirts, mugs, all sorts of stuff like that. You can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/MileHighHuddlePod and facebook.com/MileHighHuddle. You can join the great community we have over on Facebook in conversing on all sorts of different topics. On all the articles that we write up, they always get published on those. And if not, you can follow us on Twitter or X, whatever it is you want to call it, at MileHighHuddle, at the MHH Pod, and at DVDD_pod, as well as Lance and myself at Lance S_MHH and at Erick Trickel. I want to say thank you guys for joining us tonight and all that. Ronnie asking what happened to Kenneth and Ron. I don't know if that's a plan for Saturday night. I know when there's issues with Kenneth on scheduling, but with Kenneth on Dove Valley Deep Divers, that was always on the interim while we figured out what we can do to get Lance back on the show. I know that there's been some conversation about how to get Kenneth back on a show and what to do there, but scheduling has been issues there. And as for Ron and Dylan on Saturday nights, Dylan got a new job, so he can't do Saturday nights at the time anymore. So that I don't know. As far as I know, they haven't figured anything out. Last time I talked to Chad about it, so we're just trying to figure out what to do on the interim, because hopefully Dylan can figure out things so he and Ron can get back on Saturday nights. But anyways, guys, that's gonna have to do it for us. But Lance, before we get out of here, any final words?
No, just thank you all for joining us. We definitely appreciate everybody who super chatted. I mean, we got a handful of them in here tonight. Papa Bear, obviously, David McElrath, David Cromwell jumping in here, James E, a handful of people on Facebook. I know Ernie jumped in here for a minute. Michael Ronquillo doing his thing as he wants to do every single show. Ronk, we definitely appreciate you, and we appreciate everybody who joined us tonight. Like, again, I say this every single show. Without you guys, we couldn't do what we do best, which is cover our Denver Broncos. So you guys stay safe and take care. Have a great rest of your weekend. And as always, go Broncos.
Yep. Have a wonderful weekend, you guys. Stay safe. Don't drink and drive. And as Nick, my good friend Nick always says, choose kindness and compassion. I will see you back on Monday. Hope you guys have a wonderful evening, a wonderful Friday night, and a wonderful weekend. And of course, as always,